Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Today is July 31st, 2023. We are here for a work session for the Board of Larimer County Commissioners regarding emergency services facility update and potential costs. I am Jody Shad McNally, Larimer County Commissioner, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and joining me today at the dais are my colleagues, Larimer County Commissioner John Gonzalez and Larimer County Commissioner Kristen Stevens. Also here at our conference table is our County Manager, Lorinda Volker. Our Assistant County Manager is also in the room, Lori Kadrich, and we also have our Director of Facilities, Ken Cooper, and we have other guests, lots of guests. I'm going to let Ken kind of kick this off and then introduce the rest of the wonderful folks at the table. So thank you, Ken. Ken Cooper, thank you for being here.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioners. Ken Cooper, Facilities Director. With us today, Leah Parrott and Justin Whitesell with Emergency Services from the Sheriff's Office, and of course Tim Keeton, and then Jen Johnson and myself from Facilities. So we appreciate your time today. We've come to you multiple times about the project for our working to replace the Emergency Services Facility that's currently located at 1303 North Shields. You'll recall from past conversations that the redevelopment of that site requires a whole host of steps because of being in the floodplain there. And so we've been actively, looking for property. You supported us moving forward with the purchase of a 50-acre site, which really works out very well. Again, these are going to be repeat, in pieces of information, but the primary support need for Justin's team is primarily in the Poudre Canyon, and so this site is north of 287 and works very well. It gets them onto 287 and heading up the canyon, up onto 14 very quickly. Everything is a go there, aside from the challenge with getting water to that site. The development, and particularly, I guess, since COVID, they had a heavy influx of of new development that happened with people that now are able to commute and I'm sorry, not commute, but work remotely has increased the development in those areas, and many of the mountain areas, and so unfortunately that piece is a bit of a hiccup, and we're still moving forward with that. We have a neighborhood meeting upcoming to talk about it, specifically the property. But Jen can probably fill in some details in terms of the process that's going to have to happen. We are asking our architect, the architect studio, to look at options for if we cannot increase we need to basically quadruple the size of the water tap that we would need for the facility to what's there now. It's a 3/4 inch. We'd have to get to 1.5 inches, if I recall, and so with that, the challenge, of course, is to get that site developable for the needs for the Sheriff's Office Emergency Services Group. So we also wanted to share with you some updates in terms of the partnerships and some of the opportunities that may still be out there. You'll recall that Tim has kind of led the way with Congressman Negus's office, and so that we can give a quick update on that. We anticipate some likely support in this upcoming cycle early in 2024, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And just as a quick reminder, we're expecting a facility in the range of 30,000 square feet. It would replace what's there today, which is about a third of that, and so there's really an opportunity to really improve things. You'll also recall that the multiple sets of agencies and different service providers that operate out of this facility currently and into the future, during an event, it can be hundreds of people that would kind of descend on that facility. There's also training opportunities that would happen, and this 50-acre site is considerably bigger. It's kind of a long strip, considerably bigger than what we were originally looking for, but the price was really good, and we feel like it's a very good fit if only we could get water to it. So that's kind of the quick version of it, and I think with that, Tim Keeton will have some things to share, and we can kind of bounce through this. Unless there are questions, we'll kind of just keep moving. So thank you.
Seeing no questions, good morning, Commissioners. Tim Keeton, I'm a captain with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, and work for Justin overseeing everything he needs in making this project happen. To touch base a little bit, some different things that have transpired. I think most of you, or some of you, I guess, were present and saw this firsthand, but just to get the entire board up to speed. Fairly recently, we had a luncheon with the governor and the governor's office and the director of Department of Public Safety, where we discussed, and Commissioner Kafalis was there, where we discussed this building and needs. A Chris LeMay, on a sidebar note, asked the sheriff a little bit of information about it and discussed some funding opportunities potentially from DOLA at the state. And the sheriff talked with him, asked Justin Whitesell to talk a little bit about that, some more specifics about our needs. One of the things Chris brought up was potential for solar, if we'd intended to maybe do some more renewable energy and a little bit more green building concepts with it. And of course, we're absolutely open to that. And he was just thinking there might be some funding sources from the DOLA perspective if we're looking at a green opportunity. So we're going to explore that a little bit. As a matter of fact, Justin and Leah set up a meeting this week where we're going to meet with him on Thursday to have a discussion regarding this. To update you a little bit on the grant funding sources from Senator Neguse. Congressman, thank you. I knew you guys would know. When I applied for this in about March or April of this calendar year for an award cycle starting in September for this federal fiscal year, I was originally told a maximum of between $3 and $4 million was eligible to be awarded per grantee, but I was told also apply for what you really need, not for that limit. So I actually applied for $10 million. We were not awarded anything, but of note, I think the two important things to note here was that in meeting with Neguse personally, when he came to Larimer County, and Commissioner Stevens was there at that meeting, he kind of said, we're on a 3-year cycle. They had budgeted something similar within the last 3 years, but next year was our year. So we're very hopeful to receive some funding. And I'm also going to put in for far more than the 3 or 4 million, maybe 10 or 12 million this time. I was actually encouraged that during this award cycle, there was one awardee that was awarded $6 million. So I do believe there's a bigger pot of availability than the $3 to $4 million that I was originally led to believe was our maximum. So no promises there, but I'm encouraged that there might be a solid funding source there for this next go around, which the funding would, to my understanding, would become available September of, well, probably October 1st, I guess, of 24. And then either have a 24 a 12 or 18 month cycle to be not necessarily spent, but encumbered, is how I understand it. Any questions for me?
Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Captain. So based on when you applied this year, does that mean you'll be applying next year in March or April for the federal fiscal year that begins October 1st, 2024?
Great question, Commissioner. Yes, that is absolutely correct. And this will be our third application. We applied in April of 22 for the 23. We applied in April of 23, and then we will apply again in April of 24.
And if I may do a quick follow-up, and I presume you'll be applying for at least $10 million? At least 10 million?
At least, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Stevens.
Don't the senators also have a pot of money that earmarks? I mean, I think it's probably, if we can apply to all three of them, that would probably be good.
That's a great question, Commissioner, and I would love to speak on that. I was told this year that the congressmen would work with the senators to jointly work this together. Unfortunately, I was told this after the deadline to apply with the senators, but this next year, I do absolutely intend to apply for both, even if it's repetitive. And what I'll do is I'll actually apply with both senators and both congressmen.
There's actually 3. You need to apply for the CD8.
That's right,
Yes.
right, because C8,
Yeah.
you're right, that's right. And I'll apply with every one of them. if nothing else, I think, not the old pun, the squeaky wheel, and I don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but I think that the more we discuss the need, I think that Nagoose is going to be the primary because the building will sit in his portion of the district within Larimer County. But I think that all of them working together, understanding the need, we need to go on all of that. So I do intend to apply with all 5, correct?
Do we know if as we know, the federal government is looking to maybe lower some spending, is this something that we feel like might be on the chopping block? Because we always, there's obviously the struggles for dollars, and there's a potential shutdown and lots of things that are looming. And so I know that there's been talks between the two parties around, how do we decrease spending. So do we have any idea if these sort of earmarked kind of items are on the chopping block at all?
I think that's a great question, and I had those discussions with the representatives and they're primarily their aides. And then I also researched a lot of stuff within what had been published. And while you can never guarantee one way or the other, they're putting a big focus on wildfire, both mitigation and suppression. And so I think that it's prioritized higher than other things, and I think it has also bipartisan support because of the public safety aspect of it. Great question.
And Captain Keeton, I certainly think that you like being a squeaky wheel, so.
Me?
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Stevens, do you have any other questions? Okay, I think any other information with that?
Do you have anything you want to add? I don't think so.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner, I don't think it's it. Do we have more updates, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I think Jen can share a little bit more about the development process for that parcel. We're in the due diligence component of that, of course, so, yeah.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my question. So it sounds like there's some extra challenges that we weren't aware of. So I was curious about the cost and timing for that as well.
Great. Jennifer Johnson. I'm the Facilities Planning and Real Estate Manager. So just a quick timeline of what we're looking at. As you recall, we executed a purchase and sale agreement back in April 25th of this year, of 23. In that we have a due diligence period of basically 190 days. So we've been looking at a lot of things, and obviously the biggest thing that's come up is the water. There is a 3/4 inch tap there. That is really just enough for a residential property typically. So our needs are much more than that. So those are some of the things we've really been investigating. We did bring on board the architect studio and their consultant team. We've got basically a fire consultant because we would need to sprinkler the building on options of what we can do with for water for the fire sprinkling. We also have a civil engineer on board and what we call our mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer to kind of understand what we're up against for water distribution. I've had a few conversations with Northern Colorado Water Association. The individual's name is Tom. I don't recall his last name, but anyways, so we are getting more information. We still feel like we're on a path that we could accomplish the water needs, whether it's a well or storage tanks, which could actually occur from the tap that's on site. You can fill storage from the on-site tap, which was an interesting one. So I figure I'd just give you a quick update that we are going forward to holding a neighborhood meeting with our county planning department. Those notices should have gone out late last week by the planning department. That's happening on August 10th here at this building. We're going forward to the LaPorte Planning Committee on August 15th. Again, that meeting is here at this building in the evening. And we'll give a presentation, we'll have a packet put together that's submitted prior and kind of get feedback from that group. What we've learned is that we fall under the LaPorte plan and not the Larimer County zoning and planning piece. So although it sounds like Larimer County provided that plan for LaPorte many, many years ago, so they work hand in hand because they don't have their own planning department. So we're going forward with that on the 15th from both the neighborhood meeting and the LAPAC meeting, that LaPorte committee. We will go forward to the Planning Commission. We'll kind of do our last little changes to go forward with our submittal and our application with the Larimer County Planning Department, and Planning Commission is planned for September 20th. We run out of time in our due diligence in early November. What I can tell when I look up the property, which this has popped up again, I had mentioned to Justin, but there is a backup offer awaiting if we end up not able to satisfy what we need during our due diligence. So the Planning Commission, sorry, I should back up real quick. That's for the location and extent approval. Just basically indicating it, is this use the right use in the location and the zoning that's set forth. So we will be asking, it's a little gray on whether this use is compatible with the location based on the zoning. And again, that kind of goes back to an old setup for planning, and part of the property is O for open, and part of it is rural residential. So, but we're told if LAPAC has some good feedback, that that's something that would really go a long ways. Yep.
Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jen. Just to provide a little context regarding LAPAC, the LaPorte Area Planning Advisory Committee. So typically the meetings are hybrid, and it's been a while since actually folks have gathered in person. So just so you're aware, you have that option. Although I know people will want to engage on this particular project. I think the document you're referring to is the LaPorte sub-area plan, which is under discussion. I think there'll be more discussion in September to look at possible updates to the sub-area plan. And then ultimately it would go through our process to determine if our community development folks can include that in the work plan for 2024, because it does require staffing resources. I thought I'd offer that in terms of context. And the question I had regarding the water tap, what are the implications for, I have two more, this question and another one. What are the implications for access to water shares or water rights if we increase the diameter of the water tap from 3/4 inch to what is needed, recognizing there are a couple of options here?
Yep. Those are questions that I have set forth to Tom with Northern Colorado Water.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he has indicated that they don't take private water shares, which surprised me a bit. So I've reached out to some others that I know are very versed in water and actually hold many water shares to see if there might be something, I'm just not aware of, because water does take, a lot of experience in education. There's a lot of laws around it. So I do have some folks that are just pro bono kind of trying to take a look for me on that.
Great. Yes, thank you. And my understanding, water law in Colorado and the West is very complicated.
Yes.
If we were to expand the capacity of the well, I imagine that involves some kind of augmentation process, which probably is not a simple matter. So I'm glad you're looking at all the options. My final question, if I may, is could you speak, Jen, or someone can, Could you speak to the implications on this project as we look at the rerouting of Highway 287? I think they're going to be sort of close to each other. Could anyone speak to that?
Yep,
the
I can
relevancy?
speak to that quickly. And that's what this property, what is, very attractive about this property, one of the aspects of it, that it actually is a more direct route to 287 in the future. I mean, there's good access as it exists now until the reservoir is done, but the rerouting actually gets closer as it moves to the east off of, and then County Road 56 as a direct route onto 287 is what is expected. So it's actually a better setup, and, we feel like that was one of the most attractive pieces too. Go ahead.
Commissioner, follow up on that, and I love the question. And as a retired state trooper, one of the things that's foremost in my mind is I really wanted the least number of controlled intersections that my people might be responding through in a life safety event where they're going up, let's say, to the Poudre River, where somebody's in the river, which is truly a very, very time-sensitive situation. And of all of the locations we've looked at, this is literally, we can get on to 287 with one stop sign, and we can get up into the Poudre Canyon with about the same. So it's very exciting to me from a safety aspect to the motoring public that I think it lends a significant advantage.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's an important point to make regarding public safety, and it will actually enhance public safety. It'll be interesting to see how the timing of the two projects, how that aligns, because I can't recall when the work on the 287 realignment is to begin. And then, of course, we still have a little work to do to come up with the money for this project. Thank you.
Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the water situation, is this the kind of thing where if we had enough money, we would buy shares kind of thing, additional shares? Is this like a money situation, or there's a situation where it might not work at all with the water?
Yeah, the latter is what is the understanding at this moment in time, based on the conversations. There's a moratorium on the water. They don't know if and when it'll be lifted. That was a question I had was, is this something that they're planning in 5 years, 10 years? And I think it snuck up on this water district as far as, just with the pandemic and folks making some changes to how they're officing and where they're living and those kind of things. So water has become a premium. So that's kind of that answer. The thing that I don't know 100%, as I mentioned, there may be an opportunity, we're hopeful there's a opportunity to augment with maybe some water shares if that's something that kind of comes to fruition as far as some shares being able to assist us with that. The other piece is, a well can be fairly expensive and not guaranteed, so we are looking at that direction. But the most promising piece that we know of right now, as I mentioned, is being able to actually store water from the tap that is on site. So makes me wonder if that's why they're out of water. People are storing their water from their current taps, but I don't know. I don't know how all that works officially.
Is Elko the provider there, or who's the, do we know?
No, it's
a
just
smaller.
Northern, I don't know. I don't know those answers
okay.
other than it being NCWA.
Okay, so maybe Northern has their own, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the Jackson Ditch is up there, and there's something to be said with the Jackson Ditch, and I believe Elko is, what I want to say, a user off of the Jackson Ditch, so they may be involved. But we don't know all those answers yet. We're still trying to sort through them all. Yep.
So, thank you, Commissioner Stevens. That was also my question is it enough shares and et cetera? So it sounds like you're investigating that. So I'm going to put on I'm from I live in unincorporated Larimer County, and there's lots of areas of the county, and I keep hearing you all mention this is quick access to the Poudre Canyon, quick access to here. But this is, used or entrusted to serve the entire county, so I'm wondering, is this location available to be able to attend to other areas that have high risk, like Thompson Canyon? I'm going to put on my whole county hat here, so.
No, I think that's a great question. And so one of the things I asked and really wanted to look into when looking at for a location, no matter where it was going to fall, was where are our calls for service? And it's probably not that there are necessarily fewer calls for service in the Big Thompson Canyon. It's who is the provider. For example, if something happened right here, while we have jurisdiction as the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, we're going to defer to the Fort Collins Police Department because they have an incorporated police department in this location. Well, Loveland Fire Rescue Authority has primary jurisdiction for water rescue within the Big Thompson Canyon up to a certain point, and they almost hand off with Estes Park past that. So while there are calls up there are not as many calls up there for our emergency services other than when they ask for additional resources. So one of the things I asked Justin was, give me a percentage. I want to know where everything's at. And about 70% of our calls for service, emergency services wide, is from Highway 14 to the north. So when we say the Poudre Canyon, that's a lot of the water stuff, but fires and different things like that are there and further north up into both Red Feather and Cherokee Park areas. But that's about 70% of our calls for service. And to be honest with you, if you look at it geographically in terms of entire space, it's still almost directly in the middle. It seems very far north for us. The biggest challenge, of course, is transitioning traffic and traffic control features on our way south.
Okay, that sounds great. And I know that certain things like the top of Storm Mountain is not Loveland Fire, that's you all. And so that is a long and hairy road to get up and down, and I know that that's a high-risk area. So I'm very aware of where the borders are. And I drove past them last night, so I'm very aware as I went to visit the Thompson Canyon Flood Memorial. So I just want to kind of, for my own, because I'll get questions, just want to make sure I'm kind of thinking about the rest of the fire responses. But I'm glad that you're looking at the data, and it sounds like that's, you have numbers to kind of back that up. And I know as we get more folks moving in certain areas, those numbers may shift or not shift, we don't know, so, yeah. Yes, Justin?
Can I add to that too? Justin Whitesell, Emergency Operations Director for the Sheriff's Office. I did create a ArcGIS Esri product with drive times from the new proposed location county-wide, and we are putting it in the LNE for people to see, but I do have a map in my office if you want me to send that to you at some point. And just so you know, the drive time from the proposed location to all of Estes Park, Storm Mountain, is roughly just over an hour from that location. We're still looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours to go to the very northwest part of Larimer County. And in order to be in the center for drive time, we'd probably actually have to be up in the Poudre Canyon somewhere or even towards Livermore to be able to get equal drive time everywhere. But obviously that's too far out of the infrastructure support and just being able to make it to meetings and everything else that we do. And for our volunteers, that was one of the things I also wanted to look at is because we had talked about locating in Loveland, but majority of our volunteers probably live in Fort Collins area. And so, if we're driving our dive rescue truck up the Poudre Canyon, I didn't want people to have to drive lights and sirens through Fort Collins to get to Loveland, pick up the dive truck, drive lights and sirens back through Fort Collins to get into the Poudre Canyon. So we looked at a lot of things to try and make sure we're doing it appropriately and making sure that we are able to respond in a timely manner to all areas of Larimer County, whether it's for support or whether it's direct response from our folks. But it's definitely something we take seriously and want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the communities that we're providing public safety for.
Thank you, Justin, and I'm not surprised. I know you've been really trying to pay attention to all the aspects of this, so thank you for your diligence. So just curious, since I have driven up to those parts of the northwest corner and stuff personally, is it are you allowed, is it quicker for you guys sometimes to go up through Wyoming to get to some of those locations than to go up the canyon? And if so, do you have some agreements? I mean, I can imagine you guys go on lights and sirens through the southern part of Wyoming. I don't know how that agreement works or how you coordinate, but I've found that much quicker and less hilly, I guess, or curvy with the canyon. So I'm wondering, has that happened? Or you guys do that where you kind of come up and come down that nice paved county roads in southern Wyoming? So
No, you're definitely right on with drive times, and majority of the time, especially in the winter months when you can't get through some of the roadways, we do go up into Wyoming and come back into Colorado. We don't have any agreements. I mean, there's always sheriff to sheriff agreements. We don't actually have one, I don't believe, with, would that be Albany County? But we do let them know when we're going lights and sirens through their county, just so that they're not wondering why we're going over the posted speed limit and responding lights and sirens. Obviously, in the winter, the roads are too poor conditions to run lights and sirens, so it's mostly in the summer that we're doing that. But we do let them know when we're coming through.
yeah, I was just curious since I kind of driven around that area and unintentionally got a little lost, but certainly found my way once I saw Chambers. So, yeah, I'm just curious because I found that very interesting.
Well, and it's the same on the southern end of the county as well.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's quicker to go through Lyons and Boulder County
Yeah.
and come up Highway 36 into some of those areas that we respond to. And so we do the same thing. We'll go through Boulder County lights and sirens. We call our dispatch center to have them notified that we are responding through lights and sirens, just so that we don't cause any hate and discontent amongst other counties.
Yeah, and when, we're getting near the 10-year anniversary of the floods, and it's the 47th anniversary of the Big Thompson flood today. And I know when we would try to still get up to Estes Park to support them when the Thompson Canyon was pretty much destroyed, you could still get kind of up through Lyons and stuff. So I'm assuming during that period, you guys responded to a lot of things that way. And so I know those are a little quicker. So being at my backyard growing up, it's certainly familiar territory. So it's great to know. And I just always curious about that. If you had to go through someone else's county light and sirens, how does that, I'm assuming there's a kind of a mutual aid kind of agreement or something like that. So, okay, great. Any other questions, colleagues? Lorinda, did you have some things to add? I mean, this certainly sounds a little bit more complex than it was a little bit ago. So
It does, and I'm curious to see what this TAP moratorium looks like. I looked at the website while we were talking, and it's been in place since 2020, and so it looks like they've been trying to resolve it for quite some time. And I imagine we'll come back to you, maybe in executive session, to get direction for negotiations as we approach that November deadline. It is complex in terms of location of the facility. It needs to be where you need to go predominantly, and I think you all have done a good job evaluating that. I hate to think we might be in the process of looking for another site, but it's also possible. In the meantime, pursuing grant opportunities, talking to DOLA, talking to the congressional delegation, I think is really important, and looking for partners. I know you all are doing all of those things, and appreciate the efforts that you're putting in to find funding outside of county general funds. So thank you for that.
thank you, Lorinda. And I see that our Assistant County Manager, Lori Kadrich, who also knows a lot about this project, has approached the table. Lori, would you like to make a comment?
I just wanted to share some information that the new landfill is also working on a similar issue, and that the Dwayne might be helpful to Jen to contact, because the team's been working on a very similar situation for the last couple of years.
Great.
Thank you, Lori. That's great information. I appreciate, and that's also great partnerships. Commissioner Kafas, I saw your hand was raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was curious if we can get a quick update regarding the current location of our emergency operations campus. My recollection was that there have been at least preliminary discussions about earning some income by selling that property for the city of Fort Collins to expand their natural area along the Poudre there. Is that still a possibility to generate some money?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Commissioner, that that is another source of funding for the new site, is to, when we when we get to that place in time, that we can approach others about payment for our property that we currently are located on, that would be something that we would seek to make sure that we get as much money from that property as we can. And it's hard to say right now what that even looks like, but I think once we get closer, we can start seeking if there is interest in that property.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions?
Just very quickly, just thank you for your time. Thanks for the continued support for the whole project. I didn't mention, but should have in the in that initial summary that the commissioners had approved $3 million over a year ago, to kind of get things rolling from a financial standpoint, particularly with matching for some of the grants that Tim Keeton mentioned and Justin as well. So we all really appreciate the time today, and we'll do our best to come back with some good news, and we'll continue to keep you posted. So thank you all.
Thank you all, and I appreciate your work in so many ways in coming today and kind of helping us all look under whatever couch cushions or grant cushions we can find some of this funding. So I know there's some money out there. And I'm also curious if you are expanding and looking into some of the DOLA money. There's also some money you might want to talk with Heidi Pruis with there's some the Infrastructure Reduction Act. There's some funding there, and buying vehicles and things that I learned at the NACO conference about elective pay and things like that, they just say, just apply. You can get up to like 30% reimbursements on some of these things. So if you're looking at going more that way, and there's vehicles or storage or machines, I think that's another bucket of money. I don't want to say bucket, but there's a lot of funding there that people are not taking advantage of because they're thinking there's another grant process, but it sounds like they want everyone just to apply, and then there's kind of this elective pay. And I sent some of those slides to her, but I'd be more than happy offline to kind of share some more of that information. I sit on that Environment, Energy, and Land Use Steering Committee for the National Association of Counties and the Rural Action Caucus. So there's some other interesting things we could kind of explore just to see if there's some connections that we can explore for that. So just to let you know. Yeah. Well, if any other comments, then at 11:45 we are adjourned, and please have a safe and wonderful day.